In what was a miracle run for the ages, the sixth-seeded Green Bay Packers under a young Aaron Rodgers ran the gauntlet to not only make the playoffs, but upset numerous teams with better records than them to win Super Bowl 45. The Packers were in good hands. Only 3 years after Brett Favre had left, Rodgers had won the Packers their fourth Super Bowl in franchise history. The sky was supposedly the limit now for the Packers. Unfortunately, that's not how the story ends. Ever since that moment of glory and triumph, it's been nothing but pain for Rodgers and the Packers in the playoffs. Getting so close to another Super Bowl multiple times, but being denied every chance they got. In what will soon be the future Hall of Famer's legacy, the biggest what if of Rodgers' career will be what if the Packers were able to make another Super Bowl or two with Rodgers? What if they had won 2 or 3 Super Bowls instead of just one? Come, take a trip with me down memory lane as I go over how the glory of another Super Bowl has been within the Packers' fingertips, only to slip out of their grasp over and over again. If there's one way to back up a miracle Super Bowl run, going 15-1 with Aaron Rodgers winning MVP is definitely a way to cement yourself as a heavyweight contender. Boasting a 13-0 record heading into Week 15, the Packers were only a few games away from perfection, with a chance to do what the Patriots of 2007 couldn't. While the Packers would lose that Week 15 game against Kansas City, the much more important matchup was actually played 2 weeks prior in a Week 13 game against the New York Giants. For the Giants, their season was less than rainbows and sunshine. Sitting at 6-6 after that Week 13 loss to Green Bay, it looked like it was all coming apart. They had lost their 4th straight game, their playoff hopes were dwindling. You just couldn't imagine this team would rekindle some of that 2007 magic that they had. The Packers already had their sights set on repeating with their playoff spot secured. The Giants were just trying to stay alive. I'm telling you this because it sets the stage for the rematch game. The Packers and Giants facing off against one another in Lambeau Field for the divisional round. The Packers had managed to get the better of Eli Manning's Giants in that Week 13 game earlier in the season, but it was ultimately Manning's Giants who got the last laugh. The Giants went into Lambeau Field and made the defending Super Bowl champions look silly. The league's best team by record was one and done in the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers, coming off of a season where he threw 45 touchdowns compared to only 6 interceptions, was outdueled by the meme that was Eli Manning. It was an embarrassment. Rodgers, coming off of the highs of winning the Super Bowl a year prior and then winning the league's MVP award that same year, had experienced the most heartbreaking upset of his young career. To this day, the 2011 Packers are the only team in NFL history to go 15-1 and go one and done in the playoffs. For the Packers, all they could do was put the loss behind them and get ready for 2012. The expectation for the Pack hadn't changed, nor did they show any sign of going away anytime soon. Finishing the regular season at 11-5, Rodgers and the Packers had put together their 3rd consecutive 10-plus win season en route to their 2nd NFC North title in back-to-back years, ultimately good enough to earn them the 3rd seed in the NFC. The Packers would actually win a playoff game that year against their NFC North rival Vikings in the wildcard round to set up a match against the 49ers in San Francisco in the divisional round a week later. Heading into Candlestick Park, this was not the same Niners team the Packers had faced in Week 1 of the regular season. Quarterback controversy in San Francisco had resulted in Alex Smith becoming the backup to a young quarterback named Colin Kaepernick. The former Packers fan would make the Packers' lives miserable that day as he shredded the Packers' defense for a combined 443 yards passing and rushing to go along with 4 touchdowns, 2 on the ground and 2 through the air. It was a game for the ages for Kaepernick. It just unfortunately had to come at the expense of Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. This certainly wouldn't be the last time the Packers would cross paths with the 49ers, nor would it be the last time someone on the 49ers would run over them. But that aside, it was another year where the Packers were heading home after the divisional round. Maybe the 3rd time's the charm. Well, would you look at that? Only a year later and the Packers and the 49ers would face off against each other yet again. Of course, this was a weaker Packers team than before. Injuries to Aaron Rodgers would see the Packers start 3 other different quarterbacks throughout the season. Despite finishing the regular season at 8-7-1, their worst regular season since their Super Bowl title, the Packers still won their division on a win-in Week 17 game against the Chicago Bears, just barely edging out the 8-8 Bears for the NFC's 4th seed. As a division winner, the Packers would get to host the 49ers in the wildcard round, but the 49ers, finishing the regular season at 12-4 and being the defending NFC champion, were not your typical 5th seed. In what was a close game between both sides, the difference between the Packers moving on and going home depended on one defensive back dropping what would have been a major momentum-shifting interception. If Micah Hyde makes this interception, the Packers would have been in the driver's seat to salt this game away and punch their ticket to the divisional round. Instead, the 49ers offense stays on the field and moves the chains until they're in field goal range with the game-winning chip shot lined up. The kick from Phil Dawson is good, and the 49ers are moving on. The Packers had fallen at the hands of the 49ers for the 2nd consecutive year in a row. Ultimately, 2013 was a year that showed how valuable Rodgers truly was to the Packers, as before being injured, the Packers had started the season strong with a 5-2 record. Without Rodgers, the Packers would lose 4 of their next 7 games, and they only barely managed to sneak into the playoffs because of how weak the NFC North was. A healthy Rodgers would be crucial if the Packers were to have any success in 2014. Another elite season from a healthy Aaron Rodgers got the Packers right back on track. They'd finished the regular season with a 12-4 record and their 4th consecutive NFC North title. The Packers would face off against the Cowboys in Lambeau Field in the divisional round in what is now the game where Dez Bryant caught the ball, but didn't technically catch the ball. For the record, Dez caught that football. That aside, the Packers were the beneficiary of that mistake and would head to Seattle only a game away from getting back to the Super Bowl for the first time in 4 years. And for 90% of that game, it really did seem like the Packers would be heading to the Super Bowl. That's not how this story ends, now does it? I'm sure I could just throw this up on the screen with the caption "Images that precede unfortunate events," and 99% of people know what happens next. Ultimately, what killed the Packers on that fateful day at CenturyLink Field was their inability to capitalize on the Seahawks' slow start and an uncharacteristically bad game by Russell Wilson. By the end of the first half, the Packers had forced 4 turnovers, and yet only managed to turn them into 6 points. Even then, the Packers still held a 12-point lead with 5 minutes to go in the game, and they had just gotten the ball back on Wilson's 4th interception of the game. Unfortunately, it only takes one mistake. No one will ever forget that onside kick slipping through the Packers' hands and into the hands of the Seahawks. There was also that miraculous 2-point conversion, which is probably no good 99% of the time, but because it's the Packers, of course it was somehow successful. Rodgers would do what he could to force overtime, but by then it was too late. Seattle had found its stride, and Jermaine Kearse would put the final nail in the coffin to eliminate the Packers. At one point, the Packers had led 16-0 at the half. They had picked off Wilson 4 times on the day. They even had a 12-point lead with 3 minutes to go in the game, and in the end, they still managed to find a way to lose. They had the Seahawks on the ropes, and when the Packers were only minutes away from a Super Bowl 49 appearance, they let their foot off the gas. This was the Packers' best chance to get back to the Super Bowl in years, and they just couldn't capitalize on it. Rodgers and the Packers would add yet another heartbreaking elimination to the pile heading into the 2015 season. Now, I'm sure by the end of the 2015 season, Rodgers and the Packers had had enough with playing NFC West teams in the playoffs. Coming off of their win against Washington in the wildcard round, the Packers headed to Arizona to take on a resurgent Cardinals team on a bit of their own Cinderella story. Just skipping ahead to the final minute, the Packers had no timeouts. They had to go to the length of the field and score a touchdown to just tie the game. Oh, and by the way, it's just 4th and 20, so no pressure. And yet, by some miracle, Aaron Rodgers makes the play to find Jeff Janis for a 61-yard completion to keep the Packers alive. And somehow that's not even the craziest play of the drive. With pressure in his face, Rodgers just throws an absolute prayer to the end zone, and it's answered. You don't earn the reputation as the Hail Mary King for nothing. Aaron Rodgers makes Hail Marys look easy. Rodgers had single-handedly willed the Packers into overtime when it looked like the clock was about to strike midnight on the Packers yet again. The only problem being that the Packers forgot to cover some guy named Larry Fitzgerald in said overtime. I mean, that's some sort of sick comedy by the football gods to give the Packers hope with 2 magical plays, only for the Packers to essentially lose the game on the first play of overtime. Rodgers, who had pulled all the bunnies he could out of his magic hat just to get the game to overtime, could only watch on the sidelines as his defense gave that play up. Not only was 2015 the 3rd consecutive year the Packers were eliminated at the hands of an NFC West team, for reference, see the image on screen now. This was the 3rd consecutive year the Packers had been eliminated on a walk-off on the final play of the game. Rodgers had done all he could in those games to help keep them as close as they were, but could only watch from the sideline as his defense allowed the game-winning drive in all of those games. All the Packers could do was look forward to 2016, and hopefully they wouldn't have to face another NFC West team in the postseason. When Aaron Rodgers said the Packers could run the table, most people didn't immediately rush to pencil in the Packers as being only 1 game away from Super Bowl 51. Sitting at 4-6 after Week 11, it wasn't all going as smoothly as years before in Green Bay. But a 6-game win streak to end the season would definitely prove that Rodgers knew what he was talking about when he made that bold claim. Rodgers would finally get his revenge on Manning's Giants in the wildcard round in what is now notoriously known as the Boat Party game, and prove yet again that he was the Hail Mary King with a Hail Mary to Randall Cobb on the final play of the first half of said game. With their win against the Giants, the Packers punched their ticket to Dallas to square off against the NFC's top-seeded Cowboys in a rematch of the controversial game years prior. In what was an even game between both teams, the difference between winning and losing would be whether or not you had Aaron Rodgers starting for you. Rodgers had yet another trick up his sleeve with just 12 seconds left to find Jared Cook to set up the game-winning field goal that would send the Packers to the NFC Championship game. For the first time in a while, the Packers were on the good end of a walk-off. And with an 8-game win streak heading into Atlanta, this was a red-hot Packers team looking to secure themselves a spot in Super Bowl 51. That was until the Falcons absolutely dismantled the Packers in every facet of the game a week later. The Falcons' offense led by Kyle Shanahan. Hey, wait, why does that name sound like it'll come up again later? Anyways, the Falcons' offense just proved to be way too much for the Packers' defense to handle. Yeah, it was another loss in the NFC Championship, only 1 game away from the Super Bowl, but the Packers and Aaron Rodgers did run the table, just making the NFC Championship game after starting the season 4-6. The Packers, for the 6th consecutive time, could only hope next year would be better. Remember when I said a healthy Rodgers was crucial for Green Bay? How 2013 was their weakest year because Rodgers didn't start a full 16? At least then, Rodgers still had a chance to come back. When Rodgers broke his collarbone in 2017, his season would ultimately be over. There would be no return story to save the Packers. With Rodgers, the Packers were the same Packers people had come to expect, starting the season strong with a 4-1 record in what looked like another year the Packers would be competing for the playoffs. Without him, the Packers lost 8 of their next 11 games to finish the season at 7-9, securing their first losing season in 9 years to that point. A season that held much promise early on, ultimately derailed by a season-ending injury to Rodgers. Maybe the Packers could rebound in 2018 with a healthy Rodgers like they did in 2014. 2018 was actually the polar opposite of 2014 for the Packers. Even with a healthy Rodgers, the Packers struggled to start the season with a 3-2-1 record heading into their bye week. Following the bye week, the Packers went 1-5 in their next 6 games to drop to 4-7-1, including a pathetic performance against the 2-9 Cardinals that ultimately got Mike McCarthy fired. The Packers would finish the season at 6-9-1 and secure back-to-back losing seasons for the first time in a decade that was marked by success. The Packers, after 13 long years with McCarthy, would be looking for a new head coach, ultimately deciding to hire Titans offensive coordinator Matt LaFleur. The late Packers GM Ted Thompson would also step aside from his GM position and allow someone else to take the reins. Fresh blood would lead the Packers' most important positions from that point on. Now it was only a question of how good LaFleur can do as a coach. And as it would turn out, Matt LaFleur is a pretty darn good head coach. Not since the days of Jim Harbaugh had a rookie head coach led his team to a 13-3 record, a division title, and a trip to the NFC Championship game. There's just one small problem. Their opponent in the NFC Championship game was the 49ers yet again. And for good measure, they were coached by Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan, in his stroke of genius, schemed together a game plan where Jimmy G only needed to throw the ball 8 times because Raheem Mostert managed to rush for 220 yards and 4 touchdowns on the day. It got to the point that the game was basically over by halftime when the Niners already had a 27-0 lead. Not only was this the second time the Packers were completely picked apart by Kyle Shanahan in the NFC Championship game, not only was this the second time the Packers got absolutely run over by someone wearing a 49ers uniform, but this was the third time in the Aaron Rodgers era that the Packers had lost in the playoffs to the 49ers. The silver lining was that LaFleur was the right person to take over as Packers head coach. The bad part was that the 49ers of the decade proved to be the Packers' boogeyman, crushing the hearts of the Packers not once, not twice, but thrice. Now, for the last time in this video, maybe next year is the Packers' year. Cutting to the chase, the Packers finished 13-3, won the NFC North yet again, and were the NFC's top seed with another MVP season from Aaron Rodgers. The Pack took easy care of the Rams with a one-handed golf in the divisional round to get them right back into the NFC Championship game. With halftime only seconds away in what was a 14-10 game to that point, Tom Brady decided to one-up Rodgers and thought, hey, that Hail Mary thing looks pretty fun, let me try that, before launching an absolute bomb to Scotty Miller for the touchdown. How on earth the Packers aren't playing prevent defense in that situation is beyond me. But moving on to the fourth quarter, the Packers played reminiscent of how they did against Seattle years prior, as the Packers failed to come away with much of anything after 2 key interceptions from Jaire Alexander reiterated an inability to capitalize on turnovers. There's also the out-of-left-field decision to go for the field goal on 4th and goal instead of going for it to tie the game. Now this is just my 2 cents. But how do you not send out your MVP quarterback on 4th and goal, the season on the line? They're not facing Mitch Trubisky on the other side. They're playing Tom Brady, the 6-time Super Bowl champion to that point, Tom Brady. Funny story, Matt LaFleur was actually the Falcons QB coach when the Patriots, led by Tom Brady himself, came back from being down 28-3. Matt LaFleur should know better than anyone about giving Tom Brady the ball back. And yet he took the ball out of Aaron Rodgers' hand and gave it right back to Tom Brady. Lo and behold, Brady ices the game, and the Packers are once again eliminated. Now we are at the present day, where the Packers have their eyes set on another run in 2021. If there's any team that can tell you how hard it is to win the Super Bowl, look no further than Aaron Rodgers and his Packers. They've managed to win the NFC North 7 times in the last 10 years. They've had 7 seasons in the last 10 years where they finished with 10 or more wins. Aaron Rodgers even won 2 MVP awards in that 10-year span. And yet the Packers have lost their last 4 NFC Championship games. They got blown out and dominated by San Francisco and Atlanta, but the Packers' best chances were against Seattle and Tampa Bay. 2014 and 2020, just off of the eye test, were the best chances for Green Bay to finally make it back to another Super Bowl. And yet the Packers just couldn't get over the hump. With Aaron Rodgers' future in question with the decision to draft Jordan Love, you have to wonder how many more chances Rodgers has of getting to another Super Bowl, let alone win that second ring. Who knows, maybe next year is finally the year the Packers get over the hump.